The fall of Mayor Tiffany Henyard, a courtroom drama unfolds. Today marked the most humiliating chapter in Mayor Tiffany Henyard's political career. The courtroom was packed. Cameras rolled. All eyes were fixed on the judge, who had just delivered the verdict. A heavy silence filled the room, thick with tension. Then, in a moment straight out of a political thriller, Henyard abruptly stood up and stormed out. Her outburst wasn't just dramatic, it was telling. Was it the weight of mounting corruption allegations? The exposure of financial misconduct? Or the sting of betrayal from those who once supported her? Whatever it was, Henyard had lost control. For months, the mayor had dodged accusations, misuse of public funds, shady business dealings, and ruling with an iron grip. But today, everything came crashing down. Reporters, analysts, and Dalton citizens filled every seat. They had come not just to witness justice, but to see the unraveling of a once powerful figure. Gone were Henyard's designer outfits, her trademark bravado, and polished press conferences. She entered the courtroom looking subdued, perhaps even defeated. At first, she tried to appear unfazed, calm, composed, as if this trial was just political theater. But as the prosecution began listing each unethical transaction, the cracks began to show. Her facial expressions shifted. She glanced nervously at her legal team, who looked equally shaken. Then came the bombshells, a $43,000 taxpayer-funded Amazon shopping spree, first-class flights, luxury hotel stays, and town billboards plastered with her own face. But the biggest revelation? Email records, wire transfers, and private contracts linking Henyard directly to funneling public money into personal accounts. The courtroom gasped. Jurors, ordinary citizens who once trusted her, exchanged looks of disbelief. Some of Henyard's longtime supporters turned pale. Her legal team scrambled for damage control, but the evidence was irrefutable. The prosecution painted a damning picture. While Dalton residents suffered under high taxes, poor infrastructure, and cut services, Henyard lived lavishly on their dime. Then, a key witness, a former member of her inner circle, stepped forward. The betrayal was stark. This insider testified to a culture of fear and intimidation, detailing how Henyard silenced dissent and manipulated those around her. The courtroom was stunned. The once unshakable mayor sat visibly rattled, clinging to what little composure she had left. As the judge called for a recess, Henyard exploded. She leapt to her feet, shouting, "This is a setup. You just can't handle a strong black woman in power." The room froze. The jury exchanged uneasy glances. Her legal team rushed to calm her, but it was too late. The meltdown had begun. As she stormed toward the courtroom doors, defiant and furious, federal agents who had been silently observing from the back suddenly stepped forward. Without raising their voices, they presented official documents and told her calmly, "Miss Henyard, we need you to come with us for further questioning." This is not an arrest at this moment. It was the turning point. Henyard's defiance flickered. Her eyes darted between the agents and her attorneys, who whispered urgently at her side. But the room could feel it. The power she once wielded was gone. Reporters captured every second. Flashbulbs erupted. Social media lit up. The phrase "Henyard meltdown" began trending within minutes. Outside the courtroom, former supporters stood in stunned silence. Some shouted in defense. Others slipped away, disillusioned. Inside, as the federal agents gently blocked Henyard's path, the weight of months of investigations finally came down hard. She shouted again, "This is political persecution." But this time, there was no applause, only silence. Her political armor had shattered. The most devastating blow came when another close ally, someone once seen at her side in countless public appearances, took the stand. Their testimony confirmed what the public feared. Behind Henyard's confident exterior was a leader who manipulated, coerced, and controlled. Her administration wasn't just corrupt, it was a regime built on deception. When the recess ended, Henyard tried one last time to regain control. She stood up, trembling with fury, shouting, "It's all lies. You can't silence me." But no one reacted. The room, the jury, the press, they had all seen too much. As she turned again toward the door, the federal agents calmly moved to block her exit once more. "Miss Henyard," one agent repeated, "we need you to come with us." No more outbursts. No more power plays. Just silence and the soft click of camera shutters capturing the final moments of a fallen mayor's career. Henyard, who once ruled Dalton with confidence and clout, now stood exposed, powerless, and isolated. The trial had started as a corruption case. But by the end of the day, it had become something more, a public reckoning. The city of Dalton watched closely. The verdict wasn't just about guilt or innocence. It was about trust, leadership, and accountability. And for Tiffany Henyard, the final chapter was no longer in her hands. The fall of Tiffany Henyard, a power unraveled. "Ms. Henyard, we need you to come with us for further questioning." A deafening silence swallowed the courtroom. The weight of the moment hung thick in the air. Tiffany Henyard, once a formidable, commanding force in every room she entered, now stood exposed, the illusion of power dissolving before the eyes of those who had once cheered her name. Even her most loyal supporters, those who had stood by her through every controversy, watched in stunned disbelief. They too could sense it, her grip on power was slipping away. Henyard stood frozen, her chest rising and falling with slow, heavy breaths. The reality was setting in. She had expected a difficult court ruling, maybe even some harsh words from the judge, but this? Federal agents, paperwork in hand, an air of finality? This wasn't part of the plan. Her carefully constructed world was collapsing. Her attorneys rushed to her side, whispering urgently, "We need to go now." But Henyard, ever the fighter, wasn't ready to accept defeat. She squared her shoulders, clenched her fists, and cast a defiant glare at the lead agent. The tension in the room was electric. The once unshakable mayor now found herself powerless before the very system she once believed she could control. The lead agent repeated his command, his voice calm, measured. "Ms. Henyard, you need to come with us." Though no formal arrest had been made, it was clear the investigation had reached a boiling point. Her influence, her carefully cultivated image, could no longer protect her. Henyard had long believed she was untouchable. Insider connections, political maneuvering, whispered assurances, those had always worked before. But not this time. Agents from multiple federal agencies formed an impenetrable wall around her. There was no escape. Outside, chaos erupted. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted. Social media ignited with hashtags like #Bora and #Wyo, trends that transformed Henyard's unraveling into a global spectacle. Supporters clashed. Some screamed of conspiracies and setups, but others fell silent, distancing themselves as the scandal grew too large to ignore. The courtroom, once her domain, had turned hostile. The halls of justice echoed with the sound of her fall from grace. Escorted by federal agents, Henyard stormed through the courthouse. Her expression was one of pure defiance, but every step echoed humiliation. Her fall was being broadcast in real time. Reporters bombarded her. "Are you under investigation for corruption? Do you have a statement? Will you resign?" She didn't answer. She wouldn't give them the satisfaction. She focused on what little control she still had. Her PR team scrambled, issuing a statement calling the incident a political witch hunt, a deliberate attempt to silence a strong Black woman who had dared to challenge the status quo. But the leaks came fast. Allegations poured out: financial mismanagement, intimidation, misuse of public funds, and even the existence of offshore accounts. Then the real bombshell hit. A secret recording surfaced. In it, a voice, allegedly Henyard's, sneered. "They wouldn't dare speak against me. And if they do, we'll make sure they regret it." Social media went into overdrive. Memes. Reaction videos. Hashtags like #Canard and #Clothes dominated timelines. The public perception shifted overnight. She was no longer seen as a leader, but as a villain in her own political drama. Inside her team, panic set in. Lawyers tried to discredit the audio, calling it a distortion. But the damage had been done. Even local officials began abandoning her. Influencers and politicians quietly deleted old posts of praise. On national news, anchors declared that her political career was in its final act. Then came the interrogation. In a federal office, Henyard sat across from investigators. The bravado was gone. No smiles, no quips. Just nervous tapping of polished nails against a cold metal table. The lead investigator slid a thick folder toward her. Bank statements, invoices, emails, documents bearing her signature. The paper trail was damning. "You can keep playing this game," the agent said, "or you can start telling us the truth. Because right now, we have enough to take this all the way." Her smirk faded. She leafed through the documents, each page heavier than the last. Offshore deposits, fictitious community projects, quid pro quo deals with private entities. And then, perhaps most damaging, a sworn statement from a former aide. "This is bigger than bad press," the investigator added. "This is federal crime." Henyard pushed back. "This is absurd. A smear campaign." But her words felt hollow. For the first time in her political life, she was not in control. Outside, the city roared. The city council held an emergency meeting, broadcast live. One trustee who had once championed her stood before the cameras and declared, "This administration has failed our city." Protesters gathered outside City Hall. Signs read, "Justice for the people," and "Investigate everyone." The tide had turned. Back in the interrogation room, Henyard was a politician in freefall. Her empire crumbled around her. Her defenders were silent. Her enemies loud. Her future uncertain. In a last-ditch effort, she released a video. "This is a political attack," she said. "I've devoted my life to serving the city. The truth will come out." But the public wasn't buying it. Comment sections lit up. "Now you want to talk after stealing our tax money? Where's the fake news when we have proof? You're done. Resign." Refusing to give in, Henyard held a press conference. Defiant, she accused the media and the government of targeting her for being a strong leader. "They want to silence me," she said. But it was too late. That night, FBI agents raided her home and office. News outlets streamed the event live. Boxes of evidence were removed, documents, hard drives, phones. Images of Henyard in handcuffs went viral. The charges? Wire fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy to commit bribery. Potential sentence? Over 20 years. Legal analysts speculated her only chance now was a plea deal. The city prepared for new leadership. Henyard's allies faced scrutiny. The political machine she built was crumbling. But Henyard wasn't done. From behind bars, through her lawyers, she sent one last message. "This is far from over. The truth will come out." Was it a desperate bluff or a calculated move? Time would tell. But one thing was certain. The rise and fall of Tiffany Henyard would go down in the city's history. From unshakable mayor to inmate, her story was now a cautionary tale. And though her political career appeared to be in ruins, the question remained. Was Tiffany Henyard finished for good?